Ladies and gentlemen, it is now about 7:09. This meeting was scheduled to commence at 7 o'clock. Present are members Peter Jablin and Emily Geeson, myself, Michael Marnick, the new board secretary, Amber Dauphiné, the building commissioner of the town of Orleans, Tom Evers, and myself, Michael P. Marnick, the chair. The quorum to grant, the quorum is 3 members. However, to allow relief to an applicant, 4 members are necessary. I'm quite sure that Messrs. Taub and Mulligan are excused. I thought, and I think that Mr. McCarthy, the vice chair, is unavailable, which would lead Mr. Cole, who I thought was going to be present.
He's being with the Board of Selectmen, he's gonna move into associate member. I'm not sure if that's already, or if that, I know we're voting on it tonight.
Yeah, okay. But still, I need him for, I need him or Mr. McCarthy for.
I may have a suggestion
Okay.
for the board, how to approach at least the applications before the board right now.
Oh, we could do it by review. A review of by an absent member?
I was thinking, actually, is it okay if I begin to talk about the merits of the matter?
Yes, well,
Okay.
I'm calling the meeting to order.
Okay, do you mind if I sit right here, Mr. Marnick, is that
No.
okay? Okay,
No, that's
thank you.
fine.
I don't mean to disrespect any of you by sitting here, I'm just comfortable. So, when I look at the section under which Mr. Courier is looking for relief from, it says that you can't, in the zone 2, you can't have sewage disposal with a wastewater flow exceeding 110 gallons per day per 10,000 square feet of lot area. What he's done is he's gone to the Board of Health, and you may be aware of this, but you can get what's called nitrogen credit from another lot that you get an easement against, and that becomes a piece of another lot that can't be developed, and then that land area calculates to your land area. It has to be in your same neighborhood, it has to be the same type of land. If this board were to determine by a simple quorum, a majority of the quorum, that your interpretation of the code is such that if you have other land that creates that 10,000 square feet as approved by the Board of Health, that it meets that requirement, I don't think you even need a special permit or variance for that.
We were discussing that in a vacuum.
Right.
Building commissioner and I. This was the first time that, since I've been on the board, that we saw this kind of a problem. And I wasn't really sure whether it was going to be specially permitted, whether it was prohibited to begin with, or whether a variance was necessary. Then it occurred to me that the Board of Health ought to have exclusive jurisdiction over these kinds of things. However, since it's in District 2, there is not an inconsistency, but ordinarily, the Board of Health would have been able to grant the relief that the applicant's looking for, except in District 2.
Well, there's a town-wide nutrient management bylaw that requires that, you can't build more than 1 bedroom for every 10,000 square feet. Title V, the state regulation, has this provision that allows you to essentially restrict land on adjacent land or nearby land and then use that as a credit for your land. So if you have a 40,000 square foot lot, you can build a 4-bedroom house. But if somebody else has a lot in your neighborhood and they're willing to put an easement and restriction on their land that sets aside 10,000 square feet that can't be built upon, you can't introduce nitrates into it, you can't use it for any purpose, then you can do what's called a nitrogen credit agreement that just transfers that credit to your land. The local Orleans Board of Health bylaw doesn't really have a provision about that, but I've been before them several times and they've allowed variances where they've said, okay, under Title V, the state Title V will let you do that, and apparently David's already been to them. So I think because of that, and again, I don't know why this bylaw was passed, but my guess is it was passed for that reason, to make sure that, you protected your groundwater and the same things. I would posit that that actually provision in the bylaw, because the Board of Health has the authority to grant those nitrogen credit agreements, this provision of the bylaw doesn't, it's sort of almost extraneous. I feel like it is, unless there's some other reason why it's required.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes,
please?
Peter.
Do I understand that this nitrogen credit agreement with other property does not even need to be abutting?
No. What happens is, the town of Orleans, what happened was Title V in the state regulations. So Title V regulations say, if you're in what's called a nitrogen-sensitive area, you can't build more than one bedroom for 10,000 square feet. And the nitrogen-sensitive area includes, as a defined area, an area where you have both your septic system and your water well on the same property. So out in this part of the Cape, until town water comes in, everybody's nitrogen-sensitive. You're limited. Then what happens is the towns came in and started building water systems, like in Orleans, and now there's one in Eastham. As soon as those water systems come in, that limitation is gone. So in order to control development, and also to help protect the groundwater, because the water systems don't protect the groundwater, they just make sure that what you're drinking is safe. Towns have gone to implementing these, what they call nutrient management regulations, of imposing that same regulation even where you have town water, which is where Orleans is. So we have a property where it's on town water. Title V allows you to do this nutrient credit thing, but the local towns hadn't quite caught up to do it, and so Orleans is catching up to do that, and I've been before them, so they have to do it sort of by a variance provision. So David went and asked for the variance, they granted it to him. So what the Orleans does is they follow the state regulations. The state regulations say that it has to be land that's not currently in use. It can't currently be used as credit for another septic system. Like, you can't have a 4-bedroom septic system on a 40,000 square foot lot and take land from them. It has to be dedicated to your use by an easement granted by that person to you with an accompanying plan that dedicates that piece of land. You can't have any nitrogen introduction into that land. You can't put fertilizers on it. You can't build on it. And so it has to be specifically dedicated to you. It has to be part of the same, they say, division or development of land. It has to be part of that same area, and it has to be of the same type of land, meaning it has to be upland to upland, or it can't be a different type of land. So there's some restrictions on where that land can be. It can't be across town, and it can't be a different type of land, but so.
It has to be in the same proximity.
It has to be in the same proximity, it has to be of the same type of land.
And does Mr. Courier have to own it?
He doesn't have to own the land, but what he has to have is he has to have an easement granted by the landowner. And in this case, Oceanus Lowry, who owns the land on Bakers Pond Road, is giving him an easement restricting that piece of land, because that extra piece of land on Ocean's land isn't necessary for a septic system.
Did Mr. Courier have to pay him anything for that easement?
That's between them. The Board of Health and the state don't care if you pay for it or not. They just care that you have the easement. They care that, so basically it's, you have your 50,000 square feet. It's just that 10,000 of it's over here and 40,000 of it's right here.
And is there a specific proximity?
No, there really isn't. But yours, how close is the land?
So the Board of Health approves it by being in the same watershed. So
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
taking my nitrogen and putting
Yeah.
it over in Mill Pond. So our nitrogen in that neighborhood all goes to the same spot. And technically mine's actually, the reason why it went through so quick was moving it over to mine meant moving it up further away from any nitrogen problems. So that's why they agreed. But both of our lands end up eventually going to Pleasant Bay. I mean, it's got to go a real long way, but then it goes down.
See,
The same basin?
Same basin, yeah.
okay. So here we have the
Thank you.
lot, the lot which is the basis of this application contains 40,200 square feet. We didn't have a plot plan to accompany the application. So what's happening is you are in the process of obtaining an easement which would give you an extra, the use of, for certain purposes, 10,000 more square feet. That gives you 10,000 times 5, 50,000. Is that the way it would work?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. then what we would need, I suppose, is we'd have to be satisfied. Oh, then we could, do we need a variance?
What I was going to suggest is this: if one way to do it, and this may be abdicating the board's responsibilities and roles, so I don't want to push you into this too hard, but the regulation says sewage disposal systems with a wastewater flow exceeding 110,000 gallons per day, 110 gallons per day, per 10,000 square feet of lot area. It doesn't say the lot area, it says 10,000 square feet of lot area. This nitrogen credit has them actually putting in below that limit of 10,000 square feet of land for 110 gallons per day. He's actually meeting the requirement. It's just that the lot's here and here. So it's not like he's coming to you saying, look, I want to put 4 bedrooms on a 38,000 square foot lot. So it's either an interpretation by the board that we're going to read that as being lot area that's legally dedicated and exclusively provided for the septic system, or you're going to say it's lot area within the lot itself.
But this is something that was known to the Board of Health when you went there.
No, I have to believe that when this was written, it was back when they were creating those nutrient management bylaws, and they were trying
No, I didn't mean that, when you went to the Board of Health recently.
to. Yeah, yeah.
That they knew the facts, that they knew the situation. And it doesn't, there's nothing that provides, oddly, that it has to be contiguous.
No. It just has to be land that's available and dedicated and isn't used for somebody else's septic system. So if the board were to read this as saying, we're reading this as saying there has to be 10,000 square feet of lot area dedicated to each bedroom in the septic system, we're not reading this as requiring that it be within the same lot. It just has to be lot area dedicated to the system, that's the health, what's driving the health considerations of this. I'm not sure if there would be a consideration that forces that nitrogen recharge area to be within the same lot, from
No.
a zoning standpoint.
No, I mean, we can't add anything to the,
No, so if you
To-
read this as saying, as long as you have 10,000 square feet of land area that's lawfully, by easement or ownership or otherwise, protecting this bedroom count, or if you say, or what you could do is, I'm just worried if it gets into a variance, I'm just not sure how you fit the variance criteria to make this work.
no, I don't know either.
I think this is more of an interpretation issue.
That's it.
So if you interpret this as saying, as long as you have that meets it, and by the way, that has to be by way of, an approved septic system by the Board of Health, then I think a majority of this board could say, look, that's our interpretation of the bylaw as we look at it, and, then the building inspector could go back, and it's up to Tom to decide whether he's comfortable with that interpretation, but that, you could do that by a majority. The other thing I could suggest is what you could do is continue this, let David get his easement, get his septic plan, file that with this board, so you can actually look at the plan, look at the easement, and then, if you have 4 members, you can, I don't know what the timing is on this.
So, to add to what he just said, the reason why you don't have a plot plan for all this is when you start doing all this, you might as well engineer out the 10,000 square feet, you might as well engineer out my land, and it's one of those things where I've already done the numbers, and you get the lawyers and the engineers, it's probably gonna be about 6, 7, 8 grand.
No, it doesn't have to be that fancy. I mean, I'm sure there are plans of your land that you can sketch on, the structures.
You shouldn't need that for the
Yeah.
easement anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that-
have to have it for the easement.
Well, I,
I'm not saying that you need a civil engineer for that purpose.
all right.
It's just something that the board can, for at least for the file, so that the board can understand exactly what the proposed transaction is. I would feel more comfortable to know that you had that easement in place, rather than voting and conditioning it upon you're getting the easement, because that way we wouldn't have to look at and review it after you've got it. I don't, that's my thinking. Members of the board?
My thinking, people don't like to hear this generally, but I'm also thinking of precedent. I would like the town residents of Orleans to know that we take this seriously,
Sure.
and that we would like documentation, so it's not a walkthrough.
No, I think that's good, but that means that you'll have the easement in place.
That's what- In other
now-
words, I agree
Now,
with
since since it's been brought to my attention
Yeah.
that there's a discrepancy here on the District 2, then I will bring that to the zoning bylaw task force to tell them that this is the problem we arose, and it was an unusual one, and it ought to have been in the jurisdiction of the Board of Health and never come here to begin with.
One thing I could suggest is it may be advisable just to refer the question both to the planning board and to the health agent to look at, because we now have a nutrient management bylaw that covers all the residential districts in the town, maybe that provision isn't necessary. I don't know. I don't understand the interplay between this, but I have to believe that anybody building a house, and this is gonna be falling under that nutrient management bylaw generally anyways.
Well, I think you're right, but we want to be able to keep a procedure in place so that, subject to whatever objection there might be, that we can give the relief to this.
I understand that.
appli-
I'm just
this
saying,
applicant.
I'm just saying it may be that
Yeah.
the protection is built into the health,
I think.
such that this bylaw, it may be in a further town meeting, it may be advisable just to take that right out of the bylaw, because they're still afforded the protection, and the Board of Health is, I hate to say this to you, but maybe better equipped to handle these types of questions.
Well, I think that's probably true. I agree with that. But the mechanism is through the zoning bylaw task force, which
Sure.
is, there's a designee from here, from this board, there's at least two members of the planning board. The selectmen have a designee or two that comes in and out of those meetings, and the building commissioner and the town planner. So, in monthly now, we talk about situations that are arising, so we're ahead of the curve, or solving problems that were unanticipated, such as the floodplain, the remapping of the floodplain.
Thinking about-
You remember that? Okay, so, what's your timing on the easement with Osh?
He already said he's all right with it. It's just, we were trying to get the approvals first before I go ahead and get all the paperwork, hiring people to do the paperwork.
You're gonna have to do it anyways. They could continue this to the next meeting. You could go work with Osh to get a plan prepared, you need it for the Board of Health. Bring it back and they'll pick it up again, and then they can review it again.
Yeah.
Do you think that you could do that in 2 weeks? Is
I
that
don't know.
too short a period of time?
Yeah, it's one of those, I'm at the mercy of somebody else's schedule,
I know you are.
I can't tell.
Then,
Is the Board of Health hearing this again, or are they already approved?
No, they've already
no,
approved, as long as they
they've
get.
signed off.
Okay.
That's what I understood, anyway.
Yeah, they signed off with contingency saying, I have to follow, it's not legitimate until the paperwork
So
is filed.
if David and Osh prepare, there has to be a plan of the land showing where the easement's going. You have to actually dedicate it by plan, it has to be attached to the easement. They prepare that easement and the plan, and then submit that to Mr. Canning, and then a memo comes back to this board that the paperwork's been reviewed and approved by the Board of Health.
That would be great.
With that
I would
plan.
like to see something from the Board of Health. I know
Right.
that
Okay.
you've passed through there, but I didn't see anything.
I think that makes
May I
sense.
speak, may I address Mr. Courier? May I
Yes, please.
Mr. Courier, I don't want to, personally, I do not want you to spend unnecessary money on this, but you can see where I'm going when I want things, Ts crossed and Is dotted for the future, okay? We want you to have this program, I do, okay? But we have to look ahead, because other people are gonna ask about this too.
Yeah, I get it. I've been on the Board of Health, and I've been on other boards in town, and I guess what I was looking for was an approval upon contingencies. That way I know in hand, before I spend any money, that if I do X, Y, and Z, that will be satisfactory to the zoning Board of Appeals, and it'll go. That was what I did with the Board of Health.
It probably would have, Mr. Courier, but we would have liked to have seen a designation of what land was involved for the easement, and some kind of plan of your own land, the 40,200 square feet. And I'm sure that there's a plan of that in existence somewhere. You don't have to have it redrawn, because we're not talking about anything that has any height, you know what I mean?
Subdivision plan for your land.
It's
plus-
mainly the dimensions of the land.
Subdivision plan for the land, just
So
can't
we
tell
know
them
that you got
10,000.
40,200 square feet there, and you've got an easement the easement for another 10,000, so I know the arithmetic works good. We all do. That's what I'm thinking. So, why don't we,
Could we request a continuance to your next meeting, and then if Mr. Curtis is not available, there's another stuff ready, he could request in advance another continuance, would that be okay?
yes, now, let me ask, is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition or in commentary to this application? Very well. Then we'll keep the same notice, Mr. Zender.
Thank you.
You know, the same public,
Okay.
we'll continue this till the February 20th meeting, and see how you come up. If you're able to do it, fine. Otherwise, let the board secretary know, and we can put it on the future agenda.
Mind me asking, Amber, how do I get a hold of you?
Sure, my cell phone is 508-360-3366.
Do you use an email address?
Yeah, Amber, 9780@gmail.
Can you repeat that, please, what you just said?
Yeah, cell phone or email.
Both.
Cell phone is 508-360-3366.
3366?
Yep, and the email is amber9780@gmail.com.
How do you spell your last name?
DAUPHINAIS.
I knew that.
It's easy.
But I didn't know that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Van Laan. Thank you, Ms. Van Giesen.
I'm just here to listen.
Very well.
Poplar and Harwich may have a similar relationship, so I thought I'd come in here,
Well, I hope we
how you
talk about
approached it here.
Thank you, sir.
Everybody,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah. I think that I circulated yes, I did. I circulated the minutes of the last previous meeting. It would be in order to approve them. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 6, 2019?
Ooh, I wasn't here. I don't think.
We could still vote on it. Do you move, Ms. Geeson?
Yes.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Therefore, those minutes are approved. Is there any further business to come before the meeting? Very well, then we can, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Very well, in a second. By Ms. Van Giesen. All those in favor
Aye.
and opposed, motion carries unanimously.